Good morning, and thanks for joining us again for another one of our lockdown sessions. My name's Tim Guest from Consulting 51, leadership mentoring, business management consulting. And for those of you who've been following these lockdown sessions, what I've been doing through since the start of January really is some short interview style videos with people who I really respect in various different areas of life. Just doing short interview style videos with them, just to help people get through this extended period of lockdown. It kind of seems to be a bit open-ended. We've got homeschooling going on. We've just heard the other day homeschooling is going to go on to at least the 8th of March. Pubs are closed, gyms are closed. We know all that. We're living through it. So we've talked with someone about mental health. We've talked about nutrition and diet. We've talked about communication in teams. Today I'd like to welcome someone I've worked with before, Ollie Ollerton. Ollie is ex-Royal Marines Commando. He spent 6 years as a member of the SBS, the Special Boat Service, where he qualified as combat frogman. He was then working in the Middle East for several years as a country manager for some large energy and telecoms firms. He's done some work for a business called The Grey Man, preventing child slavery and prostitution in Southeast Asia, and then came back to the UK as an entrepreneur. And now I think you've run 5 businesses, Ollie, including MD of Breakpoint, Battle Ready Fuels. Ollie's also an author of at least 3 books that I know of, Breakpoint, Battle Ready, and his first fiction book, Scar Tissue. So welcome, Ollie.
Hello, Tim. Thanks for having me here today. It's great working with you again.
No problem. Well, today we want to talk really about goal setting in times of crisis in a pandemic. We've talked about goal setting before. I had personal goals, business goals for 2021, and then the spanner got thrown in the works on 5th of January, whenever it was, with the lockdown, the homeschooling and things. So my goals have kind of changed quite a bit. A lot of my clients, a lot of people I speak to have really struggled. They've put off even setting goals because they don't know what the future holds for them. So what tips can you give people on goal setting and achieving them?
Yeah, I mean, it is difficult to try and set goals. You know, when you've got to understand that really, if there's things that you can't control, then you need to make sure that they don't affect your drive moving forward for goal setting anyway.
Yep.
The mind will always try and find some kind of reason to avoid the stress, avoid any kind of discomfort for something you haven't done before. So as soon as you stumble across an obstacle, you're naturally going to go, I can't do it. It will give you the excuse. It's like the old, time thing. That's almost like a flatliner for any kind of guilt or anything. As soon as you say you haven't got any time, in your mind, it's almost like a get out of jail free clause. So really, you have to understand that, some things you just can't achieve. Some goals you're not going to be able to achieve. I want to take this back, right, because I think I am the isolation expert. And the reason I say that is because when I went away when I came back to the UK before, I was still in a bad place. I didn't have any cash, didn't have anything. And I came back to the UK and I wanted to start this business, Breakpoint. Yeah. Now, to start that business, that was overwhelming. From where I was sat at that time, it was so overwhelming. So the first thing I wanted to do, to be able to conquer that dream or be able to achieve that dream, I had to focus on me, nothing else. Focus on me. For 3 months, I put myself into isolation. And it was all the focus was just on me. What did I needed to build that solid root foundation, that structure, and focus just simply on me, not Breakpoint. That was on my, I can remember at that time, it's actually in my book. I got a CD, I drew around it, and I did it like a clock, and it went from 12 all the way round. I put Breakpoint in the center, and then I put at every clock hand a goal. It was a stepping stone all the way. So by the time I got to 12 o'clock, I got to Breakpoint. And that was, like the first step for me when I got to that house, I had to cut away, like drinking was not serving me at that time. So the first step for me was reducing alcohol. The second step for me, almost in line with that one, was doing physical activity. The third step was making sure that I contributed to my mental wealth on a daily basis. And that's making sure that I'm not switching on the mainstream media first thing in the morning, turning my phone off. You know, it's a bit of a weird one, but if you switch on your phone in the morning, you are going to ruin your connection, and that's your connection to self. So really, you know, in the morning and that's really what I did over that period of time. I really focused on those 3 things, and it was a stepping stone. So really what I'd say is, if your dream, this big goal, has been affected because of the lockdown, there's no better time to really focus on yourself. The most important project is you. And until you get yourself, like I say, a solid foundation, you know, the old analogy that you can't help other people, you know, in an emergency on an aircraft, make sure you put your own mask on first, all that kind of stuff. It's absolutely that ethos. Focus on yourself.
Yeah, I was doing a presentation recently, well, yesterday actually, on leadership. In days gone by, you know, a year and a half ago, this wouldn't really have featured an awful lot of the self-care aspect, but there was quite a few slides and points on self-care, because if you're not looking after yourself, particularly at the moment, people who are in leadership positions, or it's natural instinct to want to look after everybody else first, make sure the team's all right, make sure your family's all right, you know, and forgetting yourself. I'll be all right, you know, worry about me last. But as you said, if you're not putting on that oxygen mask first, you're not helping yourself, you're going to be the first to fail, then the team will fail. Yeah, no, absolutely. And one thing, you know, I've gone through this exercise with my partner. This is really interesting, because we do find it hard to receive. Find it hard to receive without giving. You know, it's like when someone gives you a present, for instance, you feel straight away that you've got to buy them a present. You know, but you know, we're quite happy to give, you know, without receiving anything back. But when it comes to, you've got to really learn to be able to receive unconditionally, and that is to yourself and everything. And me and my partner did this thing, this exercise once over a period of time, and it was like, if ever we said any kind of affection, like "I love you" or anything like that, the other person would just say thanks. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it was so interesting, because naturally, like, you do those kind of things because you want to respond. You know what I mean? But when you sort of get away from that, you know, and it's just about giving without unconditionally giving and receiving, it's yin and yang. You have to really work on that stuff. But it's really interesting how you do that. But so, you know, you have got, it sounds selfish, but it's like those 3 months in that house, I didn't care about, I couldn't care about other people. I didn't have the bandwidth. I had to make sure everything was focused on me. And to some degree, in every day, no, I say a lot, every day you should be thinking like that. You are number one, and you can't give 100%, or should I say that the more grounded you are, the more you can give naturally, subconsciously. You know, and there's so many people out there trying to give from a fractured state, and you're really not being that much help to yourself or to them. Yeah. So what would you say to people who are sort of fearful of setting goals at the moment, because we don't know what's coming next week, next month, next quarter, and they're fearful of setting goals that they're going to fail? So some people say, I'd rather not set a goal till I know what the future's going to hold. But again, what we've got to understand, I mean, this to me, all this kind of stuff is the language of the mind. We've got to be really careful of the language of the mind, because the way it is wired, and I've gone into this, you know, I understand now how this works, how the whole system works together. And that really helps me understand when I'm having those feelings, or I'm scared to set goals, I'm scared to do this. That is my mind being devious, because you're going into unknown territory. You're scared to fail. Your ego doesn't want to look foolish if you fail. That's why when we come to doing these goals, we set goals. If you look at that behind me, nothing was ever great unless at some point you doubted your ability to achieve it. The thing is, the way we're wired, we're looking to do a goal that we know there's a 90% chance of us achieving. We know it's going to be a challenge. But then we can be kind of guaranteed that our ego is not going to be deflated, because we're not going to fail. We're scared of failing. So we've really got to understand the language of the mind, and really, it comes down to Breakpoint, which is obviously the company. The ethos of Breakpoint is embracing that short-term discomfort for long-term gain. Understanding it's not going to feel right. We're not going to want to embrace it. We're not going to feel motivated,
But we have to really step into that short-term discomfort in line with our goals. Understand the brain will find any reason to steer away from, oh, I've got this, I've got that. And believe me, you look at how much time in the day you've got, start stripping away the things that aren't serving you, whether that's EastEnders or whatever. You have got time to give to invest in yourself. And really, I tell you, the one thing I keep saying to everyone, process, process, process. Forget this, okay, when you're feeling negative, follow the process that's in line with the goal and don't listen to the language of the mind. Excellent.
Okay. Yeah, it reminds me a bit of many years ago, I went for a real phobia of public speaking. I don't know where it came from. I remember having to do an after dinner toast once, nothing complicated, and I literally froze. I was sweating hardcore and I couldn't get my words out.
I've been there.
And then from then on, I was like, oh, shit, I can't do this, can't do this. But then I worked on my mind, I worked on some NLP tactics, and then I kept putting myself forward to go and speak at events and thinking, shit, why have you done that? Why? And then it would go fine. And the feeling I would get after doing it was, you know, I felt so nervous on stage, but other people don't see that. And now I'm, you know, I still get nervous doing it, but it's all under control. And as you say, nothing was ever great unless you doubted your ability to achieve it. I've got a couple of questions from people who've texted them in, Ollie, if you don't mind answering them. Here's one. I wanted to do dry January, but I lasted until the new lockdown was announced. Am I weak-willed?
Yeah, again, what's happened there is you found that little excuse that you need. Yeah, you found a reason to you know, forget the drinking, forget whatever it is. It can be anything, whether that's you know, wanting to train to run a marathon. It's going to be it's the same process every time. Your mind has found something. And I can remember that moment for me, you know, it's when I actually gave up drinking before SAS Who Dares wins in Ecuador. And, you know, I said 8 weeks up until and including the filming period. And then I'll get back on it, have a good party with Foxy and the lads. And I can remember that point where it was like, we finished filming, it was the wrap party, everyone was getting, you know, everyone well-deserved drinks. And I just sat there in a moment. And it's about taking a pause in the heat of battle. This is where you take that breath, you breathe, recalibrate, and deliver the appropriate action. But if you just go into autopilot in those moments without taking a knee, then you'll do something. You'll go the shortcut. You know, we're trained to go the shortcut. We don't want to do that. We want to go straight across the middle. That's just
the easiest route. Yeah.
So just take a breath. Take a breath in. And it's just about analysing your thoughts and emotions in those sort of sliding doors moments.
Yeah, and also I suppose it's I read or I listened to the audiobook. I think you read, which was what, 1 year no beer.
Yeah.
Again, in that, instead of saying I'm not going to drink, it's I'm not a drinker. So rather than putting a label on yourself, they're actually saying what you are. So I am not a drinker. I'm not a smoker. Or splitting it around a little bit, and that helps as well, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because if you say I hate the fact that I'm smoking, I hate the fact that I'm smoking, believe me, you will keep on smoking.
Yeah.
And also the fact of the best time to analyse what you're doing is while you're doing it. So if you don't want to smoke or you don't want to drink, while you're drinking, you will have 75% more chance of changing that habit if you understand the reasons why you dislike it while you're actually doing it.
Yeah, and I guess it's another good tip to write down why you want to stop drinking.
Yeah.
Is it for health? Is it because you don't like yourself when you're drinking? You know, and that would help. I've got another question here. Just got time for one more. I set goals, but I find that life gets in the way and I fail, particularly at the moment where we're not in control of our environment, which is like we discussed. How can I set goals that are flexible enough to cope with whatever happens in the future?
I think you just got one thing of that. I suffer exactly the same thing. Like I'm finding it really hard at the moment. This lockdown is probably the hardest for me. I think a lot of people are finding that, you know, generally. Now, for me to break out the habit of Christmas has been tough, really tough. And it's because, you know, I haven't got any clear defined goals. Now I've got a goal, and that is SAS Who Dares wins. We're flying out to Australia in March to film series out there. So that is straight away is something is a realistic goal for me. But one thing I'd say is, look, it's never a straight line. You know, you can't just think it's going to be a straight line. Sometimes it's like a pinball machine. You send that ball up and it gets knocked left, it gets knocked right. Sometimes it goes all the way down, but you've got to just keep on moving forward. But do not beat yourself up when things don't go to plan, because believe me, I'm not like 100% disciplinarian. And I work on the fact that as long as I'm around about 80% strict to my goal and disciplined, then I'm going to get there. If you start dropping below that, but the first thing is, if you start beating yourself up, language of the brain will start saying to you, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, and it will steer you away from ever trying to keep back on track. Just accept it, appreciate it, learn from it, and move forward. And one thing I'll say from the last question is as well, it's simple as this: once you find a why, the how becomes easy.
Yeah, it's a good, very good point, actually. Yeah, and certainly having something to aim for really helps. I can remember when I used to do a lot of running before children, ultra marathons and things, and I would, not get lazy with my running, but not as disciplined as when I had an event in the diary. If I had something 1st of August, you're doing an ultra marathon or something, you work your training back from that. Was when there's no date in the diary, I'll go for a run. How far shall I go today? That doesn't really matter.
I'll tell you what, as well, one on top of that, really powerful and something you should always do. You know how we're trained and programmed as kids? When you've got something you want, keep it a secret, don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
That is the worst ever programming. The worst ever programming, because you're not accountable. All right, so accountability is so important. When you've got a lot of people we're quite easily let ourselves down because no one's looking.
Yeah, that's right.
As soon as someone else is on board with us, and like you share that goal, like you getting up there, Tim, to run that marathon or do your running training, if you have someone that you're doing that with, even if it's virtually, that keeps you accountable. We've got to do 20 miles this week, and then you keep accountable. It's a lot harder to let someone else down than it is yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And when I do I do leadership mentoring business owners, I know from myself, because I used to run a business, you're not accountable to anyone. My to-do list can go on for days and no one cares. I haven't got a boss giving me an appraisal or a pay rise. But what I do with my guys is every month we'll set objectives for them to be achieved by the next session, and we share a Microsoft to-do list so I can see when they're ticking them off, and I'll check in with them. You haven't ticked much off this week, John. What are you up to? And that switches their brain on. So
yeah. No, once you've got to KPIs, key performance indicators, there's no reason you can't do these things outside of the business world. They apply. A lot of people, they focus so much on a business and do all this goal setting and KPIs and and debriefs. Bring it into your personal life. Yeah. Make it all one. There's no difference. Yeah,
it's all transferable, definitely.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, I think that's time now. We've covered everything off there, Ollie. It's been fantastic talking with you again. Thank you very much.
Likewise, mate. Thanks for having me today.
All right, thanks.
Cheers.